Recording in progress.
We are going to begin from the middle of the Sicha on page on Ois Gimel, second paragraph from the top. So he speaking about Oides Shivas Tamuz, about the 17th of Tamuz. It's a Mishnah. It's brought down in Mishnayos, Huvagam B'Poskim. It's also brought down in the different places where they speak about halachas, the codifiers, and Shulchan Aruch, and so on. So it says, Chamisha Dvarim Irus Aveseinu B'Shivas B'Tamuz. 5 things occurred to our forefathers on the 17th of Tammuz. And it enumerates the different things. The Rebbe Bat is going to focus on one thing, on one particular event, because that event is the most connected with all the other fasts for the Beis HaMikdash. Tainus Esther is not included in all these fasts because it doesn't have to do with the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, but rather Shivasar B'Tammuz is part of a cycle. There's what took place Tzom Gedalia, the 10th of Tevis, and Tisha B'Av. All of this is interconnected. They're all about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So there's one thing that occurred on Shivasar B'Tammuz that really is part of the entire flow of all those fasts. So he's saying, amongst the 5 things that occurred on the 17th of Tammuz throughout history, like the first thing was that the luchos were broken. But from the 5 different things that's enumerated, so one of them is that the siege that the foreign forces had around Yerushalayim, they finally managed to break through the walls of the city of Yerushalayim. That with this event of breaking into the walls of Yerushalayim, Mudgish HaKesher VaHemshech L'Chol Adal Tzoymus is emphasized the connection and the continuation of all the 4 fasts that have the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash as their general background. Asara B'Tevis, first there was the siege, which took place on the 10th of Tevis. Then the 17th of Tammuz, Yud Zayin Tammuz. Then there was Tisha B'Av. And then afterwards it's Tzom Gedalia, when Gedalia ben Achikam, the last Jewish governor, was assassinated. All of them come at one continuation, a series, one after the other. Hein Hemshech Bizman Kipshutoi, both in time-wise that they follow each other, the Hein Hemshech B'Toich, and both a continuation and part of a series in the content of what's going on. The event that the city walls were broken into, the city of Yerushalayim, that they were broken into on the 17th of Tammuz, came as a continuation to the siege that was laid on the city in the 10th of Tevis. And as a result of the city being broken into on the 17th of Tammuz, there was the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash on the 9th of Av, and afterwards the event of Tzom Gedalia that followed as the final straw. Even after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, there was a certain amount of autonomy still being allowed, and that the killing of Gedalia ben Achikam totally took away any type of autonomy. So let's skip over the brackets to the paragraph, the next paragraph after the brackets, as opposed to all the other 4, the rest of the events of the 17th of Tammuz. For example, one of the events that took place on the 17th of Tammuz was Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Har Sinai, and he saw the golden calf, so he broke the luchos. Shebehem kosher limtzei kesher v'shaychus ba'ofen yosher v'golim shara tzoymus. With the other events that took place in the 17th of Tammuz, it's difficult to find a direct and revealed connection with all the other fast days of the 9th of Av and the 10th of Tavis and so on. But in moving, it's understood an event that's untoward, that's a negative event that comes as a continuation of a negative event that took place prior to this. And that same event is not just a result of a previous event, but it itself in turn is a cause and a precursor to other negative events that will follow it. Has a certain severity and intensity more than if it was a standalone negative event. Therefore, the event that we're talking about that Shivasar B'Tamuz has in connection with the negative fasts and the negative events that caused the fast prior to it and the negative events that caused the fast after it, makes this event, even in some ways, more difficult and more severe. So therefore, saying, so too in our situation, in our topic, the idea that the city was broken into. It comes as a continuation to the siege of the 10th of Tavis prior to it. And it is a cause and a reason for the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash and the assassination of Gedaliah ben Achikam following Tisha B'Av. Is therefore more severe than just, let's say, picking another event in the 17th of Tamuz, which is the breaking of the luchas. Inyan bilti rotzu ifnei atzmo is something that was completely untoward. Because the breaking of the luchas is inyan bilti rotzu ifnei atzmo. It's terrible, you're right, but it's a standalone event. Negative as it may be, but it's a standalone event. It's not as a continuation or a cause for negative events that were prior to it and following it. So the Rebbe is not out to make us feel down. The Rebbe is out to lift us up. So he says, we know that the good measure is so much greater than the opposite of good. So the Rebbe says in the last paragraph on the page, if it comes to the matter that is untoward, that is negative, there is a specific severity. Since it's continuation and of an event that took place beforehand, and it's a cause for events, negative events that will happen afterwards, how much more so that so it is also on the side of good, as we will explain further on, that it has a unique advantage in the good as well, when the good is pointed out, as we're about to say. Top of the next page. The idea behind this is the general idea of a fast day is like the Rebbe said at the beginning of the Faber Engen, or at the beginning of the Sicha, a day that's considered willed by Hashem, desirous of Hashem, like the language used in the beginning of the Haftorah that said on a fast day that by Mincha time we read Kriyas HaTorah and then we read the Haftorah. So over there, right away, we begin with the pasuk Dirshu Havaya B'Motzei, search out Hashem where He is to be found. Kra'uhu b'yosek karev, call out to Him while He is close. This phrase is similar, and this is used as concerning the great quality of the 10 days of tshuva. One of the explanations of this pasuk is, when is Hashem called to be found? And when is he called close? It's referring to the time of Aseret Tshuva. But we're reading it on a day of a fast day to indicate that the fast day in general is a day when Hashem is found, when Hashem is called close to us. In other words, a very special and very auspicious and beneficial day. And that is even before anything having to do with Mashiach's times. But then when it comes to Mashiach's times, the true nature of the fast day will become revealed until the ultimate advantage of the quality of the fast day, like the Rambam himself writes at the conclusion of the laws of the fast days. So he says, quote, all these fast days will cease in the future in the days of Mashiach. And not only will they cease, the Rambam emphasizes, they will be in the future holidays and days of rejoicing and happiness. He brings a raya from a pasuk. This means to say, what's the message that the Rambam is saying over here? Though the beginning and the root of the fast day is connected with something that's untoward, not a negative thing, like the Rambam writes at the beginning of the laws of the fast days, he explains all the negative things that the fast days are associated with. Still in all, at the conclusion, and what's called also the seal of the sealing of the completion of the laws of fast days. And we know there's a klal that says everything goes according to the completion, according to the seal. So since this is how the Rambam seals and completes the laws of Tainiyos, that means this is the ultimate thing which we follow. Now what is it? That the ultimate thing is that Mashiach comes, it's going to be Hu Yamim Tovim, we may saw some Simcha, it's Yamim Tovim, it's holidays and days of rejoicing and happiness. And we know that the way how these fast days will be transformed into holidays are in a much higher way, in a greater way, incomparable to all other fast days, like the advantage of light out of darkness, and like the advantage of wisdom over foolishness, and the transformation of darkness to light. So despite the fact that we have many days of celebration, many Yom Tovim on the Jewish calendar, it's still not going to be as great when Mashiach comes as when we take the darkness of the fast days of present and we're going to turn it over to Yom Tov when Moshiach comes. And the Rebbe says an interesting thing about the dates of the fast days. Via Shloimer, we could say, the advantages of the fast days. They are hinted in their calendar dates even before they were actually transformed to good, which is going to happen with Mashiach. Why would there be such a thing that in the calendar dates, even before we actually have them transformed with the coming of Mashiach, is there things of positivity? Because the Hashem always prefaces the strike, the illness, the negative with the healing. So therefore, he made sure they came out on auspicious days, which is like the healing that precedes the illness. So first of all, Asara B'Tevis. The first in the series we said is the 10th of Tevis. Asiri Kodesh. We know that the 10th is very significant, like it says in the Torah, the 10th will be holy. Shivasar B'Tamuz. The 17th of Tamuz is Begimatria Toiv, is the numerical equivalent of the word good. Kimavur Besfarim and Agel Lekama V'Kam Yonim, like it's brought down in Sfarim concerning many different things, how this idea of 17 is the gematria of Toiv. Tisha B'Av, what's the significance of the calendar date of Tisha B'Av? Before the Gemara explained the Gemara, she'ikera inyan the Sreifes Beis HaMikdash Ba'asir B'Av. The majority of the Beis HaMikdash was actually burnt down on the 10th of Av. B'dugmas Asar B'Tevis. So the 10th of Av has the same quality, similar to the 10th of Tevis. V'tzoyim Gedalia, and the fast of Gedalia. So the Rebbe is going to mention in passing, there's actually two opinions when Gedalia ben Achikam was actually killed. Was he killed on the Rosh Hashanah? But since we cannot displace Rosh Hashanah with a fast, so we fast on the day after Rosh Hashanah, so the date of the fast was established after Rosh Hashanah. Or Gedalia was killed like the date, the 3rd of Tishrei, the day after Rosh Hashanah. So the Rebbe says, Afilu la'adeya, even according to the opinion, that the actual killing of Gedalia took place on the day after Rosh Hashanah. So if we say that it took place on Rosh Hashanah, so obviously the date is a great date. Rosh Hashanah is an amazing day. But even if you want to tell me that it took place the day after Rosh Hashanah, even on the day of after Rosh Hashanah, there is a unique and special quality. Like it's brought down the writings of the Arizal, the 7 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they're like Chol HaMoed, just like Chol HaMoed like connects the beginning of Pesach with the end of Pesach, the beginning of Sukkot with the end of Sukkot. So too, the 7 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that's like Chol HaMoed that connects Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So therefore, the fast of Gedalia is also connected with a very auspicious date on the Jewish calendar. But that's not even the majority of opinions. How much more so according to the opinion of the majority of codifiers, that the occurrence and the event of Gedalia ben Achikam being assassinated was on Rosh Hashanah. But the fast was pushed off to after Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, it's Eis Rotz Nachinaila. The day of Rosh Hashanah is the most auspicious day. Because in the day of Rosh Hashanah was the day when it's affected that we have coronated Hashem as a king. Therefore, Mezem move on. The Rebbe says the second paragraph from the bottom. From this is understood Geulah the great descent, and even more than a descent. A descent can be in an orderly fashion. Even worse than that is that how low these days fell. Despite the great quality of these days, the 10th of the month, the good day of the month, Rosh Hashanah, all these things should have held things fast in a good way. And despite their goodness, negativity happened. Still in all, untoward things, negative things occurred because of the way people acted in a negative way. But still in all, the purpose of this descent and how low these days fell is to transform them to holidays and to days of happiness and rejoicing, in a much more elevated way, like we said before, than Moshiach's times, like the advantage of light coming out of darkness, that will be much more powerful when Moshiach comes than other Yomim Tovim that didn't have a negative which to grow out of. And now applying this concept in our topic, according to what was said earlier, about the severity of the 17th of Tamuz, since it's a continuation of the 10th of Tevis, and it's a cause for the 9th of Av, and for Tzom Gedalia, how they move on. It's understood, Shekain, top of the next page, Shekain hu ubiyeser al kain, that's so too, and even more so, concerning the good matters of the date of the fast. Shebishivasar b'Tamuz yeshnei ilui miyuchad b'yeser seisu b'yeser ois. On the 17th of Tammuz has so much more power than perhaps the other fast days or some of the other fast days. Since it is already a continuation and therefore an addition over what was affected through our activities on the fast day of the 10th of Tavis, and how much more so because they also have to be the events of this day have to be a preparation for the great ascent that we're going to reach on Tisha B'Av. So the ascent of the 17th of Tammuz is a result of our activities to cause the ascent of the 10th of Tavis, and it's a precursor, it's a preface, and it's going to help the ascent of what's going to take place on the 9th of Av. And how much more it's going to help and be a push and an assistance for the ascent that will take place with Moshiach's coming of the Tzom Gedalia afterwards. Will be transformed to the rejoicing, the happiness, and the holidays. Following and through the empowerment that this day, the 17th of Tammuz, is going to give. So those days should be really joyous days. Now the Rebbe is going to take the specific of that event that we said fits into the series. We said different events took place on the 17th of Tammuz, but only one event is part of the general series that starts with the 10th of Tammuz and concludes with Tzom Gedalia. I say, the explanation of the content of the event that the city was broken into. That in that event, that occurrence, there's a special emphasis from all other occurrences of the 17th of Tammuz. Both for good, they have a commonality, and also for the opposite of good, like we spoke about previously at length. What is the idea of the breaking into the city concerning the service of Hashem? Like the well-known teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. From every matter we need to derive a lesson, a directive in the service of Hashem. When Yidden find themselves in an appropriate state and situation, so then they are considered an entire stature, like an entire body, an entire person. Ir Shleima, an entire city. Koilel, when we talk about an entire city, this also includes Shleimus HaChaima Shemakifas Ha'ir. They are a complete wall, not a broken wall, but a wall that's perfect and complete that surrounds the city. And like we also say, Ani Chaima Zu Torah, that the Torah proclaims that I'm a wall around the Jewish people, I unite the Jewish people, I am a protector for the Jewish people. According to this understanding, Hufka Ir, what does it mean when we say the breaking into the city? Pirud Beishnei Chelkei Chaimis Yerushalayim. That means that the walls were divided into parts. Instead of it being one solid wall, there was an opening. This indicates, heaven forbid, on a state of separation between the Yidden, because the wall being surrounding them indicates that they are one entire entity, like we said. The spiritual significance of breaking through the wall is the opposite of loving another Jew and and being united with other Jews. And this expresses itself the great descent of the 17th of Tammuz over the 10th of Tavis. On the 10th of Tavis was only a siege in Yerushalayim, as opposed to the wall that protects that untoward things shouldn't be able to permeate and to get inside. Musa was still complete, because the siege only means that they were trying to get in, but they couldn't. That's why they were laying siege to it. So nothing could get in from the outside that wasn't supposed to be in Yerushalayim. So therefore, Asar B'Tevis, in that regard, is not so bad when you think about the 17th of Tamuz that they were breaking in. Not only that, but on the 10th of Tevis, through a siege was affected also a good matter. Like was spoken about at length, the Rebbe spoke about this different times. The fact that the king of Bavel surrounded Yerushalayim, this created by hook or by crook a state of oneness and unity in Yerushalayim. Everyone was forced to remain in Yerushalayim without anyone going out or coming in. That was all true. That positive state was only on the 10th of Tevis. As opposed to on this date, when the city was broken into, so then the idea of unity that was affected on the 10th of Tevis was nullified. Rather, the wall that protected from negative things entering was damaged. In a simple sense, that the nations, the Goyim, entered Yerushalayim. And this is emphasized, the connection of the 17th of Tammuz with all the other fast days commemorating events relating to the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. The lack of the idea of loving another Jew and unity of Jews is the main cause to all matters of fasts. The main cause for the general idea of exile. The Chazal say, that the final goals that we are in now was because there was needless hate. The latter ones, in other words, the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash, that was not revealed in Torah explicitly what their sins were, so it wasn't revealed when their end of Geulah would be, as opposed to the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, that it says what their sins were. It also said that the Geulah would last only 70 years. So therefore, we see how severe and important Avas Yisrael is. This is therefore the lesson of that we derive from the negative aspect that the city was broken into. We need to increase in all matters of loving another Jew and unity of Jews. Through that, we will nullify the cause of the exile. And automatically, so therefore, the result is what the consequences cease. Once the cause stops and the result stops, so then these days of fast are transformed to Yom Tovim, holidays, and to Vimei Sasim V'Simcha, days of rejoicing and happiness. Kedivra Rambam b'Soifilchos Tainis, like the words of the Rambam at the conclusion of the halachos of Tainis, like we said before. When the Rambam speaking about what's going to happen with the fast when Moshiach comes, he doesn't just say that Soimar Aviva Goimer and goes through the pasuk, goes through the fast of the 4th month and the fast of the 5th month, which is Tamuz, and so on, and Av, etc. So it says in the pasuk, it'll be for the house of Yehuda for rejoicing and happiness and Yomim Tovim. Why does the Rambam need to go on any further? All that's important is to tell us, he's only trying to tell us, not only will the fast day cease, but they will be transformed to Yom Tov. He should have stopped right there, but he doesn't. He continues quoting the pasuk. And what does it conclude in the pasuk? Va'emes va'asholem ahevu. Truth and the truth and the peace they love. or they loved. Kidei lahadgish, the Rambam is trying to emphasize, the transformation of the fast to Yom Tovim and days of rejoicing and happiness. Tluya be'inyan da'emes v'ashalom ha'hevu is dependent upon the truth and peace that they love. Avos Yisrael v'achdus Yisrael, love of a Jew and the unity of Jews. This is also emphasized in the conclusion of the Haftorah of the fast day. I will yet gather them together for those that are being gathered, which means kibbutz galuyos. The end of the Haftorah that we're going to read today by Mincha talks about the ingathering of the exiles. Hainu, this means Movada Achdus v'kibbutz shenifal deis hasfusam shlasar misrael eida kedosha. In addition to the unity and the gathering that's affected through the gathering of 10 Yidden, a holy congregation, because that's who the Rebbe was addressing over there. The fact that a minyan comes together, that already is significant, and it's like the whole Klal Yisrael being together, because the number 10 is symbolic of all the different levels that there are amongst Yidden. There will be an increase in this. Additionally, not just oid yet, but oid as additional to the gathering of the minyan, there will be the true gathering, kibbutz galuyos kipshutoi, the literal ingathering of the exiles, kol b'nei Yisrael mamish, all Yidden mamish, tachlos hashlemus avos Yisrael v'achdus Yisrael, when all the Yidden will be gathered together by Moshiach with the Geulah Asidah, to be the ultimate completion and perfection of loving another Yid and the unity of Yidden.